Amy Davies was, by all accounts, a woman who had her life in order. At 26, she was meticulously building a future in Raleigh, North Carolina, a city that pulsed with the energy of growing tech industries and a vibrant university scene. Her role as a junior project manager at Catalyst Innovations, a dynamic startup housed in a gleaming glass building in the North Hills area, was more than just a job. It was a testament to her dedication, her love for structured problem-solving, and her innate ability to keep complex timelines on track. Her mornings began with a precisely brewed cup of coffee from a local roaster, followed by a brisk walk through the tree-lined streets of her Glenwood South neighborhood to the bus stop, where she'd review her daily task list on her tablet. Her evenings were often spent unwinding with a book or meticulously planning her budget, ensuring every dollar had a purpose, every savings goal was on target. She believed in proactive living, in anticipating challenges before they became crises. Her apartment, a modern two-bedroom unit on the third floor of the Lyra, a mid-tier complex managed by North Star Living, was her carefully curated sanctuary. It boasted oversized windows that bathed the living room in natural light, a small balcony perfect for tending her fledgling herb garden, and a surprisingly spacious kitchen with granite countertops, where she loved to experiment with new recipes. Finding a roommate for the Lyra had been an arduous process, a filtering exercise that Amy approached with the same rigor she applied to her work projects. She'd sifted through countless profiles on Raleigh Roommate Connect, endured awkward coffee shop interviews, and meticulously checked references. She was looking for someone stable, responsible, and, crucially, financially reliable. Then, Leo Sterling entered the picture. He was undeniably charming, with a perpetually sun-kissed look and an easygoing demeanor that seemed to radiate effortless cool. He had an infectious, almost hypnotic laugh and a knack for making eye contact that made you feel like the most interesting person in the room. Leo presented himself as a digital strategist and brand architect, a freelance consultant whose work took him across time zones, collaborating with innovative West Coast companies from the comfort of his home office. Or, as he often put it, wherever the good vibes are flowing. He was a self-proclaimed Libra, often referencing his zodiac sign as an explanation for his desire for balance and harmony in all things. "It's all about finding that perfect equilibrium, you know?" he'd often say, gesturing with his hands as if weighing invisible scales. Keeping the energy in sync. His online portfolio, though sleek and aesthetically pleasing, felt a little light on substance, but his confidence was persuasive. Amy, despite her pragmatic nature, was swayed by his charm and his assurances of professional stability. He spoke eloquently about shared responsibilities, mutual respect, and the importance of a peaceful living environment. They signed the lease with North Star Living in late spring of 2019, a standard joint and several liability agreement, meaning both were equally responsible for the entire rent. Amy, ever the prudent one, had read every line, initialed every page. She envisioned a peaceful coexistence, each respecting the other's space, each contributing their fair share. For the first few months, things were manageable. Leo was often out, presumably networking or meeting clients at the trendy co-working spaces downtown. When he was home, he was agreeable enough, though his definition of tidiness was decidedly more flexible than Amy's. Dishes would occasionally linger in the sink for a day, or the recycling bin would overflow. Amy, being Amy, would usually just take care of it, offering a gentle reminder. "Just trying to keep things balanced, Leo," she'd say, trying to keep the edge out of her voice. He'd flash his winning smile. "My bad, Amy. Total oversight. You're a queen for keeping the scales even." She'd even covered his share of the internet bill once when he claimed a particularly large client payment was stuck in processing. "Don't sweat it," he'd promised. "I'll get you back double next month." Gotta keep that energy flowing, right? He had eventually reimbursed her, a week later, with a casual "thanks for spotting me, you're a lifesaver," leaving her feeling slightly used but ultimately relieved. It was a pattern, subtle at first, then increasingly obvious. Charm, a minor transgression, a grand promise, and a delayed, often begrudging fulfillment. But the rent, the most critical shared expense, had always, thankfully, been on time. Until it wasn't. The first hint of trouble arrived in October. Amy had, as per her routine, transferred her portion of the rent on the 28th of September, well in advance of the first-of-the-month deadline. Leo, however, remained silent. On October 2nd, North Star Living's automated email, a polite but firm reminder for overdue rent, landed in her inbox. A cold dread began to creep in. She immediately texted Leo, trying to maintain a neutral tone she didn't feel. "Hey, just got the rent reminder. Did you transfer your part yet?" His reply came an agonizing hour later, dripping with feigned casualness. "Oh man, completely slipped my mind. My wire transfer from Vanguard Digital Solutions is still processing. Should clear by tomorrow, latest Wednesday. My sincerest apologies, Amy. So much on my plate right now with this new Synergy Innovations pitch, it's a game changer." Amy sighed, the familiar knot tightening in her stomach. She knew this script. Reluctantly, she covered his portion, transferring the funds directly to North Star Living, adding to a rapidly growing mental tally. "Just this once," she told herself, trying to quell the rising tide of unease. "He's usually reliable with the big stuff." But it wasn't just once. November rolled around, and the same exasperating narrative unfolded. Only this time, the client payment was from Elevate Media Group, and the delay stretched even longer. By mid-November, Amy was staring at her dwindling savings, a substantial portion of which had gone to covering 2 months of Leo's share of the rent, plus his share of the utilities. The polite reminder emails from North Star Living had morphed into sterner, more official notices, adorned with bolded warnings about late fees and potential legal action. Her impeccable credit score, a quiet source of pride and a cornerstone of her financial stability, felt suddenly precarious, threatened by Leo's flippant irresponsibility. She knew she had to confront him seriously. She found him one evening, lounging on the living room sofa, seemingly engrossed in a documentary about artisan coffee. She sat down, heart pounding. "Leo, I can't keep doing this," she began, her voice quivering despite her efforts to control it. 2 months of your rent, plus utilities, it's a significant amount. My emergency savings are taking a hit." He leaned back, a picture of practiced nonchalance, running a hand through his perpetually artfully disheveled brown hair. "Amy, I told you it's just a temporary cash flow issue. These high-value clients, they can be notoriously slow with their invoices. But the payout, when it finally comes, is huge. It'll all balance out, I promise. Think of it as a short-term investment in my entrepreneurial journey, which, by extension, helps maintain our fabulous apartment, right?" He offered a charming, almost hypnotic smile, designed to disarm. "You'll get every penny back, with interest, practically." His words, coated in his usual airy optimism and new age platitudes, left her feeling utterly bewildered and, worse, gaslighted. An investment. This was rent, a fundamental obligation, not a venture capital pitch. But what recourse did she have? His name was on the lease too. The true moment of betrayal, the public humiliation that solidified Amy's resolve, arrived in early December. A chilling, official-looking document from North Star Living was taped to their front door, a notice to pay rent or quit. It wasn't just a reminder. It was a formal legal threat, addressed to both of them. It meticulously detailed the outstanding balance, the accumulating late fees, and a stark warning of eviction proceedings if the full amount wasn't paid within 7 calendar days. Amy felt a gut punch. Her career at Catalyst Innovations was finally on an upward trajectory. She was being considered for a significant promotion, a move that would define her professional future. An eviction on her record would be a devastating blow, a black mark that could haunt her for years, jeopardizing her credit, her ability to secure future housing, and even her professional reputation. She stared at the bolded words, her vision blurring. That very evening, as she sat numbly at her kitchen table, the legal notice spread out before her like a death sentence, Her phone buzzed with an Instagram notification. It was Leo. He'd posted a series of stories. Breathtaking drone shots of the windswept dunes and crashing waves of the Outer Banks. A luxurious airbnb with a panoramic ocean view. Him clinking glasses of craft beer with a group of equally carefree friends. A brand new, top-of-the-line DJI Mavic drone hovering majestically over the dramatic coastline, capturing cinematic footage of their digital detox. The caption accompanying the idyllic scene read, "Finding my balance amidst the waves. Sometimes you just gotta reset, breathe, and let the ocean recalibrate your soul. Number digital nomad life, number OBX, number balance is key, number self-care." A wave of scalding nausea washed over Amy. He was on vacation, indulging in an expensive getaway, buying luxury gadgets, while she was staring down an eviction notice, having covered his share of their joint rent for 2 long months. It wasn't just the sheer amount of money. It was the audacious disrespect, the brazen hypocrisy, the profound irony of his finding balance, while actively, deliberately, throwing her meticulously balanced life into utter disarray. It felt like a calculated, deliberate slap in the face. She immediately snapped a photo of the notice to pay rent or quit and sent it to him, her fingers trembling with a mixture of rage and terror. "What is this, Leo? You're in OBX living it up while we're facing eviction? This is not okay." His reply, slow to arrive, dripped with feigned exasperation and a practiced superiority. "Amy, honestly, you need to chill. You're always so dramatic." "It's fine. I'll take care of it when I get back. It's not the end of the world. You're letting stress throw you off your center. Just find your balance." That was it. The public display of his lavish lifestyle, the casual dismissal of her very real crisis, the continued infuriating use of his balance mantra to deflect from his profound imbalance. She wasn't just being used. She was being mocked, ridiculed, made to feel foolish for her responsibility, her integrity questioned. The shame of being entangled with such a person burned hotter and more fiercely than the anger. The weight of Leo's betrayal settled over Amy like a physical, suffocating blanket, heavy with the stench of his indifference. The notice to pay rent or quit wasn't merely a piece of paper. It was a stark, tangible manifestation of her carefully constructed stability crumbling beneath her. Her meticulous life, built brick by painstaking brick, felt like it was teetering precariously on the edge of a precipice, all because of Leo's casual, almost malicious, disregard. The humiliation of potentially having an eviction on her record, of failing to secure her own living situation, of being perceived as irresponsible, was almost unbearable. A hot flush that spread from her chest to her cheeks. That night, sleep was an impossible luxury. Her mind raced, a relentless carousel of replaying every condescending remark, every empty promise, every charming deflection from Leo. She paced her small bedroom, the shimmering city lights of Raleigh a distorted blur outside her window, mirroring her own fractured state. Her chest felt like it was being squeezed in a vice, a constant, gnawing ache of anxiety that left her breathless. Tears, hot and furious, streamed down her face, staining her pillowcase. It wasn't just the significant financial strain, though her carefully built emergency fund was now severely depleted, a gaping hole where her safety net used to be. It was the profound, soul-crushing sense of powerlessness, the agonizing feeling of being completely trapped by someone else's flagrant irresponsibility and unchecked ego. She called her best friend, Sarah, who lived in Charlotte, her voice raw and hoarse from unshed tears. "I don't know what to do, Sarah," she choked out, the words catching in her throat. "He's just gone. He's posted about a digital detox on the coast, living it up, while I'm here, facing eviction. My landlord is going to blackball me. My credit will be utterly ruined. My promotion at Catalyst Innovations, how can I possibly explain this without looking completely incompetent?" Sarah listened patiently, offering a steady stream of comforting words and assurances, but Amy knew, deep down, that Sarah, as much as she loved her, couldn't solve this for her. This was her mess, and she was drowning in it. The next few days were a blur of panic and desperate, frantic research. During her lunch breaks at Catalyst Innovations, instead of diligently reviewing project sprints and agile methodologies, she was obsessively scouring North Carolina tenant rights websites, devouring every clause of her lease, and delving into the long-term repercussions of eviction on credit reports and future housing applications. She learned, with a sickening lurch, about joint and several liability, the legal clause that meant she was equally responsible for the entire rent, even if Leo skipped out, even if he disappeared into thin air. It meant that even if he owed half, the landlord could legally pursue her for the full, outstanding amount if he defaulted. The realization hit her like a physical blow to the gut. She was on the hook for everything: his mess, his irresponsibility, his debts. She tried one last time to reason with Leo, sending a barrage of increasingly desperate texts, each one more urgent than the last. "Leo, please. You have to send the money. They're going to evict us. This is serious. This isn't a game." His replies were sporadic, annoyingly dismissive, always laced with his irritating brand of spiritual detachment. "Amy, you manifest your own reality. Relax. It's all going to work out, it always does. Just breathe into it, find your center." Or, even worse, "You're creating so much negative energy around this, Amy. It's truly not productive. Let's find a harmonious solution together." Harmonious solution? He was actively, deliberately destroying her harmony. The anger, which had been simmering beneath her suffocating anxiety, now began to ignite, burning brightly and steadily. It was an inferno, fueled by humiliation, injustice, and a profound sense of being utterly exploited. She realized then, with a chilling clarity, that talking to Leo, pleading with him, appealing to his non-existent sense of responsibility, was utterly useless. He lived in a self-constructed, impenetrable bubble of denial and self-interest. He wouldn't pay. He wouldn't take responsibility. He would continue to talk about balance while actively creating monumental chaos for everyone around him. Her initial reaction, the devastating collapse into panic, tears, and helplessness, began to shift. A cold, unyielding resolve started to form in its place, like steel hardening in a forge. She was a project manager. She solved problems. This wasn't just a personal failing or a financial disaster. It was a complex, multifaceted problem with a critical, non-negotiable deadline. Her emotions, though still raw and painful, were no longer paralyzing. They were galvanizing. They were a powerful, internal fuel. She wouldn't let him get away with it. She wouldn't let him ruin her meticulously built life. She would find a solution, and she would make absolutely certain that Leo faced the full, unvarnished consequences of his arrogant, self-serving actions. This wasn't about revenge in a petty, vindictive sense. It was about reclaiming her agency, protecting her hard-earned future, and restoring the profound balance that Leo so carelessly and contemptuously disregarded. The morning after the chilling eviction notice had been taped to her door, Amy walked into the sleek, modern offices of Catalyst Innovations, a grim, unshakable determination etched onto her face. Her colleagues, accustomed to her usual sunny disposition, noticed her subdued demeanor, but she brushed off their concerned inquiries with vague, clipped excuses about some personal stuff. Inside, however, her mind was no longer consumed by panic, but by a relentless, strategic whirlwind of planning. This wasn't just a personal crisis anymore. It was the most high-stakes, intricate project she had ever been tasked with managing, and the client, the most important one she'd ever had, was her own future. She realized, with a clarity that felt almost like an epiphany, that her greatest strength wasn't brute force or emotional appeals, neither of which had yielded any results with Leo. Her strength lay in her innate meticulousness, her analytical mind, her unwavering ability to document every detail, to synthesize information, and to strategize with precision. She was, after all, a project manager by profession, not just by title. Every problem, no matter how daunting, had a potential solution. Every risk could be thoroughly mitigated. And every difficult stakeholder, no matter how manipulative, could be managed or, if necessary, neutralized. Her hidden advantage wasn't some sudden stroke of luck or a mysterious benefactor. It lay in the very foundation of her personality, in her almost obsessive need for order and documentation. For months, without even consciously realizing it would become crucial, she had been keeping fastidious records. Every single rent payment she made, meticulously confirmed by her online bank statements. Every utility bill, cross-referenced with her transfers, proving she paid her share. Crucially, every single text message exchange with Leo about money, about his delays, about his empty, saccharine promises of balance and reimbursement. She had even, almost instinctively, taken screenshots of his most egregious social media posts. The OBX trip, the expensive new drone, the lavish coffee drinks he'd flaunted initially out of simple, stunned disbelief, now suddenly realizing their undeniable evidentiary value. Her plan began to coalesce, step by careful, deliberate step, like building a complex project timeline. Phase 1, legal reconnaissance and data gathering. She spent her evenings not wallowing in self-pity or despair, but deep diving into the intricate labyrinth of North Carolina tenant law. She discovered that while joint and several liability undeniably meant she was on the hook for the entire rent, there were often specific clauses or precedents regarding abandonment or breach of contract by one tenant that could potentially allow the other to seek legal relief or even a formal separation from the lease. This was particularly true if the remaining tenant could prove consistent attempts to pay their share and diligently mitigate any damages. She educated herself on the nuances of demand letters, the process for filing in small claims court, and the absolute, unassailable importance of a clear, indisputable paper trail in any legal dispute. Phase 2, building the unassailable dossier. She procured a sturdy, professional-looking physical binder and, in parallel, created a securely encrypted digital folder on her cloud drive, meticulously categorizing every single piece of evidence. Financial records. This section contained pristine copies of her bank statements, clearly showing her timely rent payments. Alongside these were the records of the significant additional payments she had made to cover Leo's share of rent and utilities. A meticulously detailed spreadsheet tracked every single dollar he owed her, complete with dates and specific explanations. Communication log. This included exhaustive screenshots of all text messages, copies of emails exchanged with Leo regarding payments, and every official communication she'd had with North Star Living. Each entry was precisely dated, contextualized, and cross-referenced. Proof of irresponsibility and pattern of behavior. This was the damning evidence. Screenshots of Leo's Instagram posts, clearly demonstrating his frivolous spending on luxury trips and expensive gadgets while simultaneously claiming financial hardship. She even unearthed an old, barely visible LinkedIn profile where he listed a startup that had quietly dissolved years ago, and a few vague references to past projects that seemed to mysteriously vanish from any online search. Nothing strictly illegal, but a clear and disturbing pattern of embellishment, professional vagueness, and financial inconsistency. This dossier wasn't just a collection of documents. It was a compelling narrative, a legal argument waiting to be presented. Phase 3, leveraging the landlord's self-interest. Amy understood, with cold pragmatism, that North Star Living wasn't her personal enemy. They were a business entity. Their primary, overarching goal was to receive their rent payments on time, minimize financial losses, and avoid the considerable hassle and expense of a full-blown eviction process. She, Amy, had been a model tenant. Leo, demonstrably, was the problem. Her refined strategy was to present North Star Living with an undeniable, data-driven case. Leo Sterling was an undeniable, escalating financial liability. She, Amy Davies, was a proven, reliable asset. Furthermore, she was presenting them with a meticulously thought-out solution that would be far less costly and far more efficient for them than pursuing a full, protracted eviction against two tenants. She proactively scheduled a formal meeting with Miss Jenkins, the property manager, not approaching her with emotional pleas or angry accusations. Instead, she would go in fully prepared, impeccably professional, and strategically astute. She knew that simply asking to be unilaterally removed from the lease wasn't a viable option under joint liability. But she could, and would, negotiate a clear, legally sound path to definitively balance the lease without Leo, leveraging her impeccable rental record and his undeniable pattern of unreliability. Her secret plan also encompassed robust backup scenarios. If, by some slim chance, the landlord proved inflexible, she had identified several reputable legal aid services in Raleigh that offered free or low-cost consultations for tenant rights. She had even thoroughly researched the straightforward process for filing a small claims court case against Leo for the substantial sum he owed her. This wasn't merely about getting him out of her apartment. It was about meticulously protecting herself from his financial wreckage and ensuring, with absolute certainty, that he couldn't simply walk away consequence-free, leaving her to pick up the pieces. Amy's resilience wasn't a sudden, volatile burst of anger. It was the slow, methodical, almost imperceptible hardening of a truly determined mind. She wasn't seeking retribution in a petty, vindictive sense. She was seeking justice, seeking legal and financial equilibrium, and, most importantly, reclaiming her shattered peace of mind. Leo had spent months glibly talking about balance. Now she was going to enforce it, with the full, unwavering weight of meticulous documentation, strategic planning, and unwavering resolve behind her. The scales, finally, would be decisively tipped, but not in Leo's favor. With her unassailable dossier complete, and her resolve now as hard and sharp as tempered steel, Amy scheduled her critical appointment with Miss Jenkins at North Star Living's corporate office. The air in the reception area felt heavy, thick with the unspoken threats of eviction and the relentless ticking of the financial clock. Amy, however, felt a strange, almost serene calm. She wasn't walking into a frantic confrontation. She was walking into a calculated negotiation, armed with irrefutable facts and an airtight strategy. She sat directly opposite Miss Jenkins, the notice to pay rent or quit, now a symbol of her struggle, lying conspicuously on the polished mahogany desk between them. "Miss Jenkins," Amy began, her voice steady and professional, devoid of any tremor. "I understand the absolute gravity of this situation, and I assure you, I am fully and completely committed to resolving it in a manner that is fair and beneficial to North Star Living. As your records will show, I have always paid my exact portion of the rent and utilities on time, every single month without fail." She then, with a deliberate, confident motion, slid her meticulously organized binder across the table. This binder contains a detailed and comprehensive account of every single payment I've made, including the 2 full months of rent I covered for Leo Sterling, along with irrefutable screenshots of all our digital communications, where he repeatedly acknowledged his payment delays and, regrettably, consistently failed to uphold his explicit financial responsibilities under our joint lease. Miss Jenkins, a seasoned property manager with a reputation for her no-nonsense demeanor and sharp eye for detail, eyed the surprisingly thick binder with a mixture of initial skepticism and burgeoning curiosity. As she began to methodically flip through the pages, her own copies of Amy's bank statements, the time-stamped and dated text exchanges, the official North Star Living emails Amy had sent regarding the late payments, and even, to her visible surprise, the damning Instagram screenshots. Her initially stern expression began to subtly shift. Amy, maintaining her composure, continued with her proposal. "I am proposing a pragmatic solution, Miss Jenkins, that I am confident will significantly benefit North Star Living and prevent further complications. Leo Sterling, based on this documented history, is clearly an escalating financial liability. He has demonstrated a consistent pattern of non-payment, evasion, and outright financial irresponsibility, all meticulously documented here. I, on the other hand, have maintained a spotless rental and credit history throughout my tenancy and beyond. I wish to remain in the apartment, which I have invested in and call home, but I absolutely cannot, and will not, continue to subsidize Mr. Sterling's repeated financial defaults. Amy then laid out her strategic plan with confident precision. My request is for North Star Living to initiate formal, legally sound eviction proceedings solely against Leo Sterling, based on the undeniable and thoroughly documented breach of his financial obligations under the lease. Simultaneously, I am fully prepared and willing to sign an immediate addendum to our existing lease agreement, formally removing his name and explicitly assuming full and sole responsibility for the entire rent. I have already proactively secured a highly potential new roommate, thoroughly vetted through my own channels, who possesses an excellent credit score and impeccable references, and whose application is included here for your immediate review and approval. Alternatively, and without hesitation, I am prepared to temporarily cover the full rent myself until a suitable replacement roommate is formally approved by your office. She then presented the pre-filled application of her potential new roommate, Maya, as a tangible contingency, emphasizing her proactive planning. Miss Jenkins, her focus now entirely on the binder, paused on one of the Instagram screenshots, showing Leo's carefree smile, a brightly colored cocktail in hand, against the backdrop of an Outer Banks sunset. He was on vacation, she murmured, her brows furrowed in a deep, almost incredulous frown. During the very period we were issuing final eviction notices to his address. Precisely, Miss Jenkins, Amy confirmed, her voice devoid of any personal emotion, just the cold, hard delivery of fact. He dismissed my legitimate financial concerns, attributing it to my negative energy, as he consistently does. This pattern of behavior is not an isolated incident, it's chronic. The meeting extended for nearly an hour. Miss Jenkins made a few discreet phone calls, consulting with her superiors and cross-referencing Leo's initial application, which Amy knew contained a few subtly exaggerated claims about his client base and projected income. The sheer volume, the undeniable clarity, and the meticulousness of Amy's documentation were overwhelming. North Star Living, a business focused on mitigating risk and ensuring cash flow, quickly saw the clear, pragmatic path. Remove the demonstrably problematic tenant, retain the proven, reliable one, and completely circumvent the much costlier, more time-consuming, and legally complex process of pursuing a full eviction against two co-tenants. 2 days later, a pivotal email landed in Amy's inbox, its subject line reading, Lease Addendum and Tenant Action Plan, the Lyra, Unit 3 billion. North Star Living had formally agreed. They would immediately issue a formal notice to quit, specifically addressed to Leo Sterling, unequivocally citing his repeated non-payment and his egregious breach of lease terms. Crucially, they would also draft the essential lease addendum to officially remove his name from the agreement, contingent upon him vacating the premises by the end of December. If he refused, they would proceed with a swift and targeted eviction against him alone, with Amy's full cooperation as the remaining, responsible tenant. Amy returned to the apartment that evening, a newfound sense of quiet power radiating from her. Leo was predictably lounging on the living room sofa, seemingly engrossed in his phone, probably scrolling through social media or another mindfulness app. "Leo," Amy said, her voice clear, calm, and utterly devoid of the usual frustration. She held up the official letter from North Star Living, its crisp white paper a stark contrast to his casual demeanor. "This is a formal notice for you to vacate the apartment by December 31st. Your name will be officially removed from the lease, and North Star Living will be pursuing you directly for the outstanding back rent and all accumulated late fees, including the portions I covered on your behalf." Leo slowly lowered his phone, his charming smile faltering, a flicker of genuine shock crossing his face. "What, Amy, what are you even talking about? We're on this lease together. You can't just—" "I can, Leo, and I have. I've balanced the lease without you. All your endless excuses, all your empty balance talk, it's finally over. I've provided North Star Living with a complete, undeniable record of your non-payments, your repeated lies, and your consistent breach of our agreement. They've formally agreed to remove your name and will proceed against you directly for the full amount. He tried his usual bluster, his familiar attempt to twist reality and turn the blame on her. You went behind my back. That's so manipulative, Amy, so unbalanced. You're creating all this negative energy. It's called protecting my future, Leo, she countered, her gaze unwavering, her voice steady as bedrock. Something you clearly don't understand or choose to ignore. Faced with the undeniable weight of the official letter, the formal process, and Amy's now unshakable resolve, his carefully constructed facade utterly crumbled. He tried to argue, to negotiate, to charm his way out, but there was no ground left for him to stand on. The meticulous evidence was simply too overwhelming. Within a week, Leo, his bags hastily packed in a resentful, self-pitying silence, was gone. He left behind a few forgotten charging cables, a lingering, cloying scent of patchouli, and a subtle smudge on the wall where his inspirational wall art had once hung. But more importantly, he left behind a clear, empty space and a palpable atmosphere of immense relief. Consequences for Leo. The repercussions for Leo were immediate, substantial, and far-reaching. His rental history was now irrevocably marked with an eviction notice and a documented record of severe financial default, making it incredibly difficult, if not impossible, for him to secure future housing in a competitive market. The significant debt he owed North Star Living, coupled with the substantial amount he owed Amy, which she systematically pursued and eventually recovered a considerable portion of in small claims court, proving her case with her dossier, became a heavy, unavoidable burden that would follow him. His carefully curated online image of a carefree, successful digital strategist was utterly shattered, at least among their mutual acquaintances and the local Raleigh networking circles, who quickly learned the unvarnished truth of his actions. His beloved balance was utterly, decisively destroyed, replaced by the crushing weight of his own irresponsible choices. Consequences for Amy. For Amy, the relief was immense, a deep, cleansing breath after months of suffocating anxiety. Her credit score remained pristine, her financial future secure. Her apartment, once a source of constant stress and invasion, became her true sanctuary once more. She temporarily but confidently took on the full rent herself, financially tighter for a brief period, but mentally and emotionally free. Within a month, guided by her newfound diligence in vetting, she found an incredibly reliable, quiet, and respectful young woman named Maya, a dedicated nursing student, to share the space. Amy had not only successfully protected her vital financial future, but had also learned invaluable, hard-won lessons in resilience, strategic thinking, the indispensable power of meticulous documentation, and the sheer force of unwavering self-advocacy. She had faced a direct, existential threat to her stability and, instead of crumbling under the pressure, had systematically, methodically dismantled it. She had balanced the scales, not with empty, manipulative words, but with cold, hard facts, unwavering resolve, and a powerful, strategic execution. In doing so, she had emerged stronger, wiser, and unequivocally victorious. The Libra roommate had talked endlessly about balance, but it was Amy Davies who truly understood how to achieve it and how to reclaim it when it was stolen.